All right, I believe it is that time for me to declare us live. Friday morning, Awesemo Odds betting show. Myself, Ben Rasa, here with Julian Edlow. Same time, same place. You know the drill by now. Happy Friday. How you doing, my man?
Another Friday in the March Madness-esque NBA bubble.
Never ends.
These playoffs, I was not ready for. It kind of calmed down at the end of the regular season, right? So many guys sitting, so many games that we don't necessarily want to bet on. And I just kind of forgot that with the playoffs starting and tipping off games like 1 p.m. to midnight every single day, that means something. I underestimated how rapid this would be.
It's an all-day thing, and then you add in baseball. For me, like Thursday and Friday and the weekend, you add in golf.
Mm-hmm.
It's a takeover. Like football's coming. The Kentucky Derby for me is like there are other things going on. Saratoga's running. It's just insane, though. These games have me captivated. So obviously, we're going to spend a ton of time on that. I do want to say right off the top, as you guys know, we've done some things on the site. If you haven't gone there, go check out, of course, you know, the DFS content, but go see the Awesemo Odds content. Julian's doing a ton of work there. Our Odd Shopper, which is up and running. You get those best lines, things of that nature. But let's dive into it. You know, I'm going to get into the DFS side after this show. We have a ton to talk about. We've got 4 games. And I like, you know, one of the things, and I don't know if you've like noticed this or felt this, but I like the every other day. Like there's no travel. So it's the same 4 teams every other day. No deviation in the schedule.
Yeah, we're so used to, you get those first 2 days of games and then somebody will get the extra day off and we scatter what groups of games go on what days. And now it's just the same slates over and over again, which, on the DFS side, like the same players in the pool every day is getting, turning into quite the grind. But from the betting side, I feel like today's slate of games, the Friday slate of games, these series I've had a better feel for than the other day of games. So it's like these days keep coming up where I like 3 or 4 plays today. And, yesterday I was very hesitant. I should have grabbed the Bucks first quarter. I should have grabbed the Lakers first half, seen those bounce back spots, but I was hesitant. Whereas these ones, I've felt really good about games 1 and 2 in these series, and now I feel good about game 3. Maybe it'll start kind of going in a different direction at some point, but it's just kind of weird that because we get the same groups of games on every day, there's a day where I'm not quite as confident over and over again, and then we get these teams again, and I like these series a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's something I have to like. I know it sounds ridiculous because we're in a bubble, how it's so obvious, but like I've seen like many people, so many best out of 7 series, you take it in chunks. Like if you're the road team, you got to split. That's the goal. Then you go home. Can you make it 3-1? Obviously that's not the case here. So it's just, it's so weird. It's almost just like replaying the same game over and over. Like there's no home court advantage. There's no travel. There's no going on the road. And it just, for some reason, it's a weird thing when I'm trying to break down these games from a betting perspective.
So that's the thing. Like in theory, if there's a series where there are no injuries or no major news, you get the same line every game that keeps coming out. So exactly, like a lot of times we're used to seeing, a game 1, whatever, the Clippers were 4.5, 5-point favorites at home. We get that again in game 2 and Dallas steals it on the road. Now what's the line going to be game 3 in Dallas? Are we going to get the Clippers at a short number to steal it? Well, this time around, guess what? It opened at 4.5 again and moved to 5 again because it's the same game in the same spot. So like, it's going to be crazy at some point when we see a 7-game series between 2 good teams that just opens like right around to pick 'em every game and goes like 7 games, and it's going to be the same exact thing. So how do you handicap that? I don't know yet because we've never seen it before, but we're trying to do it and get a feel for it. And there's been some good spots and some bad spots, and that's just how it's been.
Yeah, it's uncharted territory, obviously. I think it could make for some like really bizarre situations. I'm not going to say a team's going to go down 3-0 and then win a series, but at the same time, I do think we see some weird things.
If there's a place to do it, it's in the bubble, right?
Absolutely. So let's dive into it. First game on the schedule, Raptors Nets. Talk to me about that. It's pretty simple. Do you think the Nets can get a game? That's the first thing I wanted to ask you.
No. And the last I checked, the sweep after going up 2-0, the sweep was minus 280 something. That neighborhood, that was when I saw on DraftKings. It was a similar number on FanDuel. The Joe Harris news is killer for the Nets. Like, he's been so big for them. He knocked down 4 threes last game. He got 15 rebounds to keep Brooklyn in that game. And that was the game where the Nets came out and like gave it their best shot. And if they were going to steal one, it was going to be game 2, it feels like. Now they play their best game and they lose, and one of their 3 best players leaves the bubble and is now ruled out game 3 and 4. So they have to win a game if Joe Harris is even going to play again in this series. It just has the feeling of a sweep, and the odds reflect that. Here's what I'm talking about like these slates of games that come up, and I like Friday's slate of games, and then I don't know if I'll even bet on Saturday. We'll see. I'm dangerously in love with all 4 favorites today, which sometimes is bad, but the last time it was good. In game 1, it was good. They all worked out. I'm not going to play the Raptors on the full line. I saw there were 4.5s on the board for the first half, which makes no sense to me because
it usually shaded the other way.
Right. The spread was 10.5, moved to like 11, I think, on game 3. Game 2 was an 11-point spread, and the first half number was 7. Now, the Nets the Raptors obviously didn't cover it because that was a competitive game the whole way through. But if that number is going to be 7 for game 2, and Brooklyn has kind of a heartbreaking loss, loses one of its best players, and comes back for game 3, why am I getting 2.5 points of value on this first half line? I think that the Raptors smell blood. They're going to come out similar to game 1 and beat up on the Nets team who's down on itself that they weren't able to get game 2 and that they're missing Harris now. I think the Raptors can come out early in this one, and I kind of like the Raptors first half play there, given where this series is at.
It was just, you said this already. Like when you're the underdog like that, you have to look at the Magic. They took advantage. They had an opening. They locked that game down. The Nets should have and could have won game 2. Raptors couldn't shoot. LeVert was, he was just not there. He did his best, but I think he was 5 of 22, something like that.
He actually played like decent without.
I know, that's the thing. It's, what the Raptors, obviously they're going to force you into that. They're fantastic defensively, but you don't have, if you're the Nets, you have to win those games. You're not going to have the opportunity. It's almost like now they would have to win 5 games. Like you have to get that down. Now we're talking, they're a double-digit dog here. Could they cover that? Of course. I have no play or position on the spread in this game. Total sits at 220.5. Seems pretty reasonable to me. I would shade to the under if I had to take a position. But this is one that it feels at best Raptors in 5, if not Raptors in 4.
Yeah. I'm with you. Usually when the total is a fair number on the Raptors, you lean under just because of how good they are defensively and playing against a bad team, losing a good 3-point shooter. I agree with you there, but it's not going to be a play for me. One thing to note, double-digit underdogs in the bubble are 5-0 against the spread. So do with that as you please with the Nets today. Do with that as you please with the Magic tomorrow. They're going to be double-digit dogs the rest of the way out, really, until they just kind of fizzle out of these series. But just one more note on the first half spread and why I'm taking it. Like I feel like from a Toronto angle, it's a good play, but just from a value standpoint, that's why the number jumped out to me. Like the 7 first half line on an 11 spread, like you're getting over 60% of the spread you have to cover in the first half. When the number's at 4.5, where it was, I think it's moved to 5 a lot of places. But when the number's at 4.5, now you're looking at covering like 40% of the spread in the first half. Now, it's 2.5 points. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but just from a percentage standpoint, having to get 40% of the way there instead of 60% of the way there in half the game as the heavy favorite, it just feels like good value to me. And this wasn't a game that I was planning on betting coming in.
This is more, I guess this blurs, and obviously after the show, me and Josh Engelman will get into the Nets rotation. But do you look at, Garrett Temple, Luwalu Cabarrón, Tyler, like somebody possibly in a prop, maybe a 3-point prop, something like that to pick up Joe Harris? Or do you just say, I'm not going to fish that low for a team that, the Raptors could just smother them all together?
Yeah, it's player props. I very rarely play a player prop just because I like the matchup or I think the guy is hot or whatever. I would say the last time I played a player prop on a fully healthy team was when Jason Tatum got really hot towards the end of the regular season in March, and was scoring like 30 and 40 a game, and his prop kept coming out at 23 and a half, 24 and a half. So I played that a few times, but I'm a guy that plays player props. I'll look at Harden when Westbrook is out, like big advantages and edges that just you can't make up, especially with late scratches, when you can still get a good number. So with the Nets, it's like, is Joe Harris enough? Obviously, you're going to get some DFS value. You're going to play some Nets because of it. But is he enough to act on a player prop? So I'm just pulling him up right now. Like, Garrett Temple should be the guy that plugs in more minutes. He's at 14 and a half points. TLC has been really good. He should get up more shots, 16 and a half.
That's a lot.
Those are the guys that stand out to me, but those are also big numbers. And then LeVert said as usual, I think he's actually usually 23 and a half. He's 24 and a half for this one. So I think it's kind of adjusted. I don't know if there's necessarily any value there. If Joe Harris were ruled out now, that's when you jump in and get, 14 and a half on TLC or 12 and a half on Garrett Temple. And that's just not there. So I don't see it for this betting card.
That's an important distinction that, I know we have some people watching that maybe are somewhat new to betting, and it is night and day where if there's an injury or news breaks, yes, you're going to react to it. But don't forget, the books are also going to adjust. Like, where the value can come in is if you're reacting before they adjust. Once they adjust, it's kind of back on a level playing field. So what you just said makes total sense. If these numbers are accounting for Joe Harris being out, which they are, that's where you're not exactly stealing value because he's out. They know that too. So
right.
Just keep that in mind. So anything else on the first game? This is clearly the worst of the four, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's just going to be a Raptors first half for me, and that's only if you can get a good number. So, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Here we go. My Jazz, 1-1. They leveled it. Easily could be up 2-0, but you know what? You take what you can get. Them and the Nuggets, this is a spread that's been, you talked about it. When we're in the bubble, it shouldn't move too much. This has moved. The Jazz were, I think, 4.5 and 4 in the first two games. I see they are 1.5 point dog on my screen right now. Listen, this seems like it's destined for 7 in a lot of ways. What do you make of the series in general, and then hone in on game 3?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a tight series. The Jazz are playing a little bit better than I guess I anticipated they would. I like Denver in the series overall, but yeah, Utah could easily be up 2-0. I think that this game screams Denver to me for a few reasons. First of all, the numbers over adjusted.
For Conley.
When Conley was supposed to play game 1, this was 3.5. And he got ruled out, and it went 4.5. So you would think that this would be 3.5 again, but we get 1.5. So that means we're getting like 2 points of value here because the Jazz dominated game 2. And Utah's they've been better offensively in the bubble. They've been good to the over. I think 7-3 or 6-4 or something to the over. But they're not going to shoot like that again. They shot the lights out. They shot 52%. They made 23s, which isn't, necessarily what Utah does. Now this game's close to a pick'em. Of course, Utah can win. But the value is on the Denver side to bounce back. Denver, I believe, is 19-8 off of a loss this season. I just feel like this is a spot where the Nuggets, who were 4-0 against Utah in the first 4 times they matched up this season. They won the first 3 matchups outright as underdogs. I just think this is a spot that they bounce back and get a win. And then game 4 is probably a spot that you circle the Jazz.
It does. Like I said, it seems like a series. I'd be stunned if someone rips off, 3 in a row and wins this in 5 or something like that. It's just business. It hurts me to say I do lean Nuggets as well. I'm not saying Conley coming back hurts them. It doesn't, but I do think they found something with keeping Mitchell on the ball like that. It came more isolation and they were effective. Clarkson obviously can score. They had enough punch. Conley coming back, it's not muddying the waters, but I do think that the Nuggets are actually more equipped to deal with the Jazz the way they're going to be constructed today rather than when Mitchell gets going. We saw it honestly more in game 1 than game 2, even though they lost. I mean, when he gets going, he can take over. Now, Jamal Murray on the other side wasn't nearly as effective in game 2. They waved the white flag, though, in that game. They pulled Jokic, they pulled Murray. I expect a much better effort from the Nuggets across the board. And I do think they go up 2-1, and then game 4 will be the telling game. My prediction would be whoever wins game 4 wins the series, but that's a little down the road. So
I do agree with you just quickly that Conley coming back could, mess things up a little bit more in the short term. Not that he's going to stink it up and it's going to put the Jazz in a giant hole in this game, but just like, why wouldn't you want, as a Nuggets backer, I have the Nuggets on the series line. Why would I want the ball in Mitchell's hands as much as it has been? He's been fantastic. So if you're telling me that Mitchell's going to get less touches, the ball's going to be in his hands less moving forward, that's great for me as a Nuggets backer.
Exactly. And as a Jazz backer, not that I have a position on the series, I just root for them. I actually like the way they look without Conley on the floor sometimes like that. It's more ISO ball, but letting Mitchell control, I actually think works well and puts a lot of pressure. The Nuggets are not at full strength. They're missing some key defenders and whatnot. So making Murray defend, I think that's their best shot is for Mitchell to actually just outscore them. We'll see. Conley's a damn good player and he can help, but this is a spot, I agree. It's just an overreaction to him coming back, especially coming off the game 2. Like the Jazz crushed him. Now they get Conley. This is almost a pseudo pick 'em, and I do not think that would be the case, even if the games were reversed. That's the last thing I'll say. If the Jazz crushed them in game 1 and then the Nuggets won game 2 in overtime, I don't think that we would see the spread here. I know that sounds a little crazy, but I think people are just overreacting to the string of momentums for Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything 219 total, again, not a strong take there. I picked my spots pretty specific with totals.
So here's what I got. The Nuggets are now, I believe, 10-0 to the over. The Nuggets are 10-0 to the over in the bubble, and Utah, where are your Jazz? 7-3. So these have been over bets in the bubble. 2 defensive teams, and now we get a low number. So, one of the reasons they've been going over is because these teams go to overtime all the time.
Yeah, that too. Every time
we have a 1.5 point spread. So guess what? We might be going to overtime again, which is great for overs. So I guess I would lean over in this one just because of the way these teams have been playing in the bubble. They've been over teams. It's a close spread. You don't want to bet something banking on it going to overtime, but the close spread helps, I guess. And these teams' history helps. I'm not going to bet a total here. I like Denver minus 120 on the money line. Forget the points when it's that short. But yeah, the total's a stay away. I would lean over, and I like Denver a lot to win the game. As I said, they're 19-8 coming off a loss this season.
Yeah. And another thing, I do this frequently, as a lot of people do. I'm going to end up betting the Nuggets today. What I'll probably do is bet I don't know, I have to decide, but maybe 0.75 of what unit in terms of what I would normally bet and save a quarter of it. If they fall down early, you're going to get them at plus money pretty quickly. If they're down 10-4, not that they're going to swing wildly, but you're going to, instead of laying a 1.5, it might be around pick 'em +1. And I will put the rest on the Nuggets there, steal a little value. Because these games, I mean, in the NBA, we see it with every game. There's going to be runs. It means nothing if a team falls down early, especially in this series.
Totally agree with you there. If we want to talk live betting, the odds change so much when you watch a game. If you're not familiar with like following an entire game while watching a live line, you will be shocked how much it changes. And like you said, all it takes is a team coming out going down 10-4, which means nothing in terms of who's going to win the game. And the team that's down 6 points 3 minutes into the game is going to shift a couple of points on that line. So yeah, following a game on the live line, if you have a team that you like, so many runs, especially, I feel like there's more runs in the bubble. Maybe I'm just making that up in my head, but like the AAU atmosphere and the only people you hear in your ear are your bench, like how the Rockets bench was jumping up and down yesterday. I feel like there's just more runs in the bubble, but maybe that's just in my head. But in terms of live betting, yeah, I'm spot on with you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, me, I'll play psychologist. Like normally I feel like when there's a rowdy atmosphere, naturally it's more the home team getting on a run, and the coaches are quicker to call timeout. Like they can sense it because of the crowd. Here, you look up and it's like, oh, wow, that team's on a 15-2 run. It didn't feel like it because there's no change in the crowd, right. Obviously. So I do agree. You're going to get that, but 2 down, 2 to go. This is we've talked on the show. I like the Celtics. I know you're a Celtics guy as well. They look good though. Up 2-0. I know Simmons, as everyone knows, is not there. Do you think simple question. Do you think Philly can get back in the series? They are a 5-point dog once again today. Third game tipping off of the 4.
No, don't think Philly can get back in the series. Put it that simple. The Hayward injury is very meaningful for the Toronto series that we're almost certainly going to see. I thought that was more of a coin flip as things stood. Now it's got to be at least a 60-40 Toronto edge, I would say, in that one. Just because Hayward's been so efficient, the depth that falls out when you insert Smart into the starting lineup in his place and then lose that bench piece, there's a lot of trickle-down effect there. But to talk about the Philly series, the Sixers have shown nothing. The Celtics, lost one of their better players and come out, and as you'd expect, they go down 14 points. Philly has a game plan. They're dumping it to Embiid. He looks great. And then the Celtics make some adjustments, start hitting a couple shots, and Philly just completely folds, and it's like a 40-whatever point swing the rest of the game. The Celtics just lost their, a top 4 player, an all-star caliber player, took 34 and 10 from Embiid and won by 27 in game 2. So I just don't see it. Philly's an 8-2 against the spread first quarter team in the bubble. I think they'll once again come out with a game plan, dump it to Embiid, which is where the ball should go. He'll have a good start most likely again. And then Boston will make adjustments. Brett Brown won't know what to do. Brett Brown switched to zone in game 2, and the Celtics hit 1,000,000 threes. Jason Tatum shot 8 for 12 from 3. It's just not working, whatever they're doing. And the Celtics are working. So we could see the Celtics go cold like the Lakers went cold against the Blazers in game 1 and just not make enough shots to get it. But as long as the Celtics play okay, I think they're going to cover this spread. I grabbed Celtics 4.5 when it came out. I think it's fine at 5. I think the money line is a fine parlay piece if you're building a parlay. And I think the Celtics to sweep at even odds. We talked about it. I wish I had taken the Celtics to sweep just right out of the gate. I'd play 4 games and 5 games, and you'll get plus money either way. I wish I had. At this point, I think getting even money on the sweep is kind of a steal. If you bet them on the money line at the minus 220 and you parlayed 2 220s together, you would get plus 115-ish. But who's to say if the Celtics win this one, they're not going to be minus 260, 275 on the money line on Sunday because they're up 3-0 and just dominating this series. So I like a little, whatever you want to call it, a 2-game Celtics parlay for Friday, Sunday, even odds that they win both games. I think that's a fine bet as well. I've tried it as many ways as I can not to be a Celtics homer here, but you look at it through, a neutral lens like you are, and it's just hard not to like the Celtics.
Yeah, I wouldn't even, like I said, if I'm recommending, I'm not I'm from New York. I'm not the biggest Celtics guy out there, and that's an understatement.
Yep.
First of all, I've been stunned. I thought not that I like the Sixers in the series because I certainly didn't, but I thought Tobias Harris could give them enough as a second punch, and he can't. And I'm sure Luffy's actually sleeping, but if he's not, he's watching the show, and he has been railing against Brett Brown. I'd hate to be like, oh, you can see the coaching advantage, but you can. Brad Stevens is adjusting on the fly, and they have no answers for this. Tatum is clearly the best player on the floor. Hayward goes down. There's no disruption. They have so many guys, so much personnel. The Sixers are going to be desperate today. I don't think it's really going to matter.
It's just like Philly's going to come out. Philly's going to come out strong, I think. But we know they're going to fade.
Like if Philly gets out and wins the first quarter, now the Celtics are -2, -1. Like I'm not going to panic there. I may actually add a position. So I don't have a ton to say. Like I said, it's just I've been stunned at what Philly has tried to do with Thibault in particular. They moved Horford back to it. Just some of the moves, it seems like they're kind of just guessing and hoping something sticks rather than having a real plan. And that's a disaster when you're playing a team as good as the Celtics.
Yeah, two quick things. Number one, Philly's going to come out desperate, and they've been a great first quarter team. So this one screams. It's tough because I really like the Celtics here. I think they're worth, a full size bet. But also this is going to be a good game, I think, to live bet, because I think Philly's going to come out and probably dominate Tice in the post again. And Boston kind of usually waits a little bit to double and see how it goes at first. I think this is a spot, like you said, you can get a couple points off Boston if you wait till mid first quarter or something. And then the second thing is, you said Tatum's clearly been the best player on the court. He has, but Embiid's been right there with him, which is the thing. Like, Embiid's playing well. Like I said, 34-10 last game, and the Celtics win by 27. That's why I'm so confident in the Celtics, because Embiid is playing really well, and Harris and Horford have just been trash. Horford off the bench gave nothing. And the whole point of starting Thibault is to give perimeter defense on Tatum, who lit them up. So it's just like, what you're doing isn't working, and it also is subtracting from you away from having Horford. It just isn't working for the Sixers. It's so clear that it's not working. No,
and if Tatum cancels Embiid, it's not going to work.
Perfect, great.
That's the Celtics will take that, because the rest of them with Brown and co is just, it's too much for the Sixers personnel. Like, Richardson's chipping in, but they need big contributions from to Shake Milton. So someone has to step up and be a reasonable too.
Starting with Harris.
Yeah,
first,
starting with Harris. It has
guys.
To be him. I do think I don't have it, and I don't even know if they're listed. I will look at. I'll put it like this: if you think the Sixers are going to win the game today, I would take the over on Tobias Harris's points, over maybe on points, rebounds, assists type props, because I don't see any way they do that unless he has a big game. So I do think that's correlated. If you do like the Sixers today, keep that in mind.
Do you have Harris points?
I don't see it listed just yet.
I don't see it either.
Keep an eye on it. Like I said, we'll be in Slack. We'll be around. But one more. This is the most fascinating game to me. 1-1 Clippers, Mavericks. The first game was bizarro in so many ways. Porzingis was ejected. There were major runs. Luka had 10 turnovers, 11 turnovers. They come back. They looked great. Is this kind of almost like Bucks and Lakers, except it's game 3 where, okay, they maybe sleptwalked a little in game 2, and now the Clippers are going to show why they're maybe the team to beat in the league?
Sort of. The other difference is that the Mavericks are a really good team, and they've been a good team all season. And Portland's kind of on the same level, I guess, at this point, a really good team. The Magic are not on the level of a Dallas Portland type of team. Like, when you have a Doncic, when you have a Lillard, it's just different. So what I will say is that, Doncic, everybody thinks is about to become a top 5 type of player in the league. So that scares you. But the best player in the series is still on the Clippers. And Paul George at any time can be the best player on the floor. Paul George shot 4 of 17 last game. 2 of 10 from 3. This feels a little bit like the Lakers getting that awful game 1 shooting performance. and then the Clippers start hitting shots in game 3. Kawhi is not going to let them lose this game. It's just not going to happen. So the Clippers, I gave the Denver bounce back numbers. The only better bounce back team is usually the Clippers. The Clippers are 20-3 straight up off a loss, 18-5 against the spread. So Clippers minus 4.5 was something I locked in. There's 4.5s and 5s up now, I think mostly now. So again, I like the favorites today. I like them to cover. The Celtics and the Clippers are two of my strongest spots probably in the postseason so far. I really think they cover today. I think they're a good money line parlay. Those are just spots that I have circled as a bounce back spot for the Clippers. And the Celtics, I forgot to mention, are a good front running team. They've put up, I can come back to it, but they've put up, they're like 10 games above 500 against the spread off of a win this season. So they build momentum very well, which is another point I meant to make. So the way that this series is going to go, I see it going back and forth some, but this is a Clippers in like 6 for me, maybe. Clippers bounce back here. Maybe the Mavericks bounce back again. Then the Clippers go up 3-2, smell blood. First postseason experience for the Mavericks, and they close it out in 6. I think betting on Clippers in 6 is a good move, and I think that the Clippers today are a very strong play.
I agree. I like the Clippers. If you have 4.5 out there, I would lock it now. Even if you have 5, I'd consider doing it. I could see this being 6 by game time. It looks like, and it's early, but it seems like the money is coming in on the Clippers side, and that would make sense. It's tough. I don't want to say they sleptwalk because the Mavericks are a good team, and I'm a huge Luka fan. But Paul George and Kawhi will be ready tonight. I have a feeling defensively, I kind of like the team total under for the Mavericks. I could see them really struggling here. Lockdown. Let me see if I can pull that. I saw it on my screen and then I lost it.
One other thing while you're looking, like you said, Paul George defends Luka well, and the foul trouble kind of skewed this number. But Paul George has played in 4 of the 5 matchups between these teams, I believe, this season. And in the 4 that Paul George has defended Luka Doncic, he has stayed under 30 points in 3 of them. He had 29 last game. He probably should have had more if he didn't get the 5 fouls. But having Paul George and Kawhi to mix up and throw on Luka, it can wear on him. So the under on the Luka point prop is something maybe it doesn't hit today, but just in general for the series, if you play it game to game, it's probably going to wind up on top.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking right now. Mavericks team total 113.5. I'm definitely taking a position under that. This is not a game that I'm not saying it can't get out there. I just have a feeling that the Clippers clamp down a bit. If they can control Luka, he controls that team. Yes, the 3-point shooting, they've got guys. I mean, we've seen Curry and Hardaway and a bunch of guys get going. I have a feeling that is not going to be the case tonight. Clippers, you could go Clippers under, you could go Clippers and take a position on this team total. That's the way I'm scripting this game, is that the Clippers defensively lock in, and that leads to them taking the 2-1 lead.
Don't disagree with it.
All right. I hate to root against Luka. He's so great to watch.
He's fun to watch. He's exciting. He's been great.
Fantastic.
He's been great in the series.
But as you guys know, like I said, these games are going to be back and forth. If you've got questions on certainly the games that aren't today, that are tomorrow, you see our Twitter handles. Julian's super active on there. I'm there. Get in Slack. No better time to join Awesemo Plus. And it's not just for this. I do want to say real quick, weekly NBA pass for only $8.24. Promo code MAMBA. There's no better time to get in for that. Like, you've got great 4-game slates. We have multiple shows, projections, ownership, all that good stuff. Me and Josh Engelman be talking about that next. But we got a little time left, so let's go to the diamond. Let's talk a little baseball. I'm passing it to you. There's 14 more of these bad boys. Last time we talked, the Cubs were on fire. That is not the case. Now the Astros are on fire. I think they've won 8 in a row. What do you make of the slate, or are you just more focused on basketball than baseball?
I'm definitely more focused on basketball than baseball, but when strong spots come up, you got to take them. One of the things that's been good lately, and we don't have it on the board this weekend, but the first 5 unders at Coors. And I lost that one yesterday, but the first 5 unders at Coors are now 11-4, I think, through 15 games. And just Rockies' first 5 unders in general are 17-4 over the last 21 games. So those have been a strong trend. And then just backing good pitchers on the first 5 rather than full game. Those are the bets rather than full game bets that I'm always looking at. So for today, or tonight rather, we have the Dodgers. Walker Buehler is coming off a bad start, and I think that has him kind of too cheap against a Rockies team that's bad on the road. You take the Rockies' kind of average production on offense, and it looks really good because they play at Coors. But you take them on the road, and they're a pretty bad offensive team going against an ace that is in a bounce back spot. So I think the Dodgers on the first 5 are one of the spots that I do have circled on this card. There's not a ton that I love just going through it. That might be my only MLB play today. But that's fine because there's plenty that I love on the NBA card, and we'll see how the rest of the weekend goes. Maybe the Giants, I guess, and Diamondbacks. Robbie Ray has been pretty bad, and the Giants have been better than expected. But backing the Giants never feels great.
No, for various reasons in any sport.
Either sport.
What I wanted to ask you real quick, because certainly, in basketball right now, props are a thing. And especially if you're a very, a lot of people watch the show are casuals, and if you're a casual bettor, taking some props is a great way to get started and whatnot. Do you ever look at baseball props? I mean, it's not as prevalent, I feel like, strikeout totals, I guess total bases, or even game props like hits, runs, errors type things, or do you stay away from stuff like that?
I would say strikeout props are probably the most profitable one to look at, and I don't even really play them much. But if you know what you're doing, and there are people much smarter than me that have the numbers on this, strikeout props seem to be a little bit easier to predict because it's generally a pretty similar number game to game with a starter. But if they get on a good roll and face the right offense that just doesn't hit, whether they're a lefty or a righty, they strike out more against the pitcher that you're looking into. You can find spots. So that's where I would look. It's tough to back a hitter in a single game. You expect somebody to hit a home run or to get the over 2.5, hits, runs, RBI added together. But what are you going to look at? BVP, an opposite hand matchup, how that guy's been doing against similar starters. It's just so hard. And then the other thing is you're getting, if you're backing Mike Trout, you're getting the 4 or 5 at bats that he always gets, rather than in the NBA when Westbrook is out, you're getting the ball in Harden's hands twice as much as it normally is. It's just because Mike Trout has a good matchup, it doesn't give him 10 at bats in a game and give you better chances. It's so much harder to bet the MLB props than NBA or NFL when you have, a running back ruled out and you get a guy that's going to get more touches. It becomes obvious. Baseball's just not like that, which is why MLB props are harder, just more difficult, usually a stay away spot for me, and why you only focus on the pitcher because that's the guy who's going to have the ball in their hand, and that's what you want to incorporate.
Yeah, it's more. Listen, baseball in general is a grind. I think that if you get in a flow and a rhythm and you're really crunching those numbers every day, it's the type of thing you can bet these props over and over and over, and the sample size can win out. But in a 60-game sprint where there's so many new variables, I mean, clearly I'm not betting baseball props for a litany of reasons. One, I would just be burning money. But it's 14 games. I may look later. NBA takes precedence for me. And it's FedEx Cup playoffs. So we got that going on. Little golf. Listen, I don't think it's the greatest spot. This is a weird tournament, 123 guys. It's the first leg of the playoffs. And the thing that I don't love about it is the guys that are really good, they already know they're moving on. So not saying they're not trying, but they don't have a ton to play for. If they win this event or they don't, it's not a huge deal. Like they're going to have their chance to win the FedEx Cup regardless. I think, as I always say, guys who have not teed off for their second round, their odds are only going to continue to fall as the morning wave racks up more and more birdies. So guys like Dustin Johnson sitting in that like 18 to 20 to 1 range. He had a good start yesterday. I don't see why, I would have taken his first round, and he's about where he was in the outright market before the tournament began. So having seen 18 of his 72 holes already, I feel pretty comfortable basically betting him where I would have pre-tournament, which I did bet him before the tournament started. So that's really where I'm at. I may look to some matchups, as I always say with golf. Just don't overreact. It's kind of like you're talking about first quarter NBA. Technically, that's the first quarter of a golf game, is that first round. You don't need to overreact to what you saw. It's really just a situation these guys can make up a lot of ground in a hurry.
Yeah, basically whatever you say in golf, I'm gonna listen to and go with that, because I'm worse with golf than you are with baseball. I would say
that's highly inaccurate. Trust me.
I don't even know what's happening in golf, so trust me, this is true. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I'm not going to get into. I have idea. I will say I know nothing about baseball, but I have genius baseball ideas that no one would listen to. And now they're starting to. Like, I was all about trying to play with like two outfielders and all these crazy positions. Now they got these shifts. Teams are starting to get it. They're becoming smarter. But yeah, listen, with golf, you just want to be careful. You want to shop. Odd Chopper is a great tool always, but and I think you would agree with this, there's no more important time to shop odds than when you're talking futures, because those odds, it's not like, oh, this is -4.5, -110. This is -4.5, -105. This is like, oh, the guy's 40 to 1 here and 16 to 1 at this other place. Like the odds are in a different stratosphere when you shop.
Yeah, totally agree there. And I do have a golf question for you. So
please.
We've talked about, the live betting winners, top 5, top 10, whatever. But those are tough to hit. Those are small bets that you're going to try and over time, hit one, whatever, every few weeks, and you're happy with that. Where I bet golf when I dabble, because I don't trust myself, unless we're live betting like midway through Sunday and it's kind of clear, all right, this is between 3 or 4 guys and I like this guy. I need to narrow. My brain is not big enough to do all these guys in the tournament. Like there needs to be five guys maybe that we're considering. So for that reason, I look at a lot of like matchups,
3 balls,
or groups of threes or whatever. So how do you look at those? Because those are the only things that I can kind of look at and say, okay, I like this guy more than this guy. I have to have it narrowed down that much for me. But what do you look at in matchups, I guess?
So yeah, that's a great way. And that's the equivalent of, again, you're going to be able to grind those. You're going to, if it's a head to head, obviously you're trying to hit, not that they're 110, but you're going to be winning basically 50%, give or take, obviously, depending what their line. Futures, that's your GPP type things. You want to hit a couple a year if they're big, and you'll come out ahead, no doubt. So with the 3 ball, it's really just one of the things I look for is there one guy in the group that almost has no chance? Because if that's the case, then you're basically playing a head to head and you're getting much better odds than what you would get in that head-to-head matchup. So
that was my thing.
That's a thing. Now, obviously, is there a chance that third guy wins and he just kills you? Of course. But there are some groups where the third guy is so bad. FedEx Cup's not a great example of that because this is the top 125. But traditionally, you have some guys that almost have no chance. So you can look to that. And then, like I always say, just don't overreact to that Thursday. If a guy had a cold putter, he can bounce back. Like Rory did not win his 3 ball yesterday. I think he's actually pretty interesting he's actually plus around 120 against his 2 guys, Brendan Todd and Berger. So you can look to those big names and overall just take the group, really break down each guy. If one guy is really slacking, now you're down to almost to a head-to-head, and that's something you can really, really attack. See, you make like you don't know, but you know.
I literally don't, but I was thinking of that because I was betting a little bit of golf when there were no sports going on other than golf. I put my first golf play on Twitter, by the way. I'm 1 for 1 on Twitter golf plays.
100% winners.
It was Tom Brady minus 400 to be wearing a TB12 hat in that matchup. That was the biggest lock of all time. It should have been minus
Tommy boy.
$1 million. The entire world knew that it was a Bucks hat or a TB12 hat. I was like, I've watched this guy wear TB12 hats over Patriots hats in his press conferences for like 15 years. This is the lock of the century.
Lock of the century.
But I like the way you broke that down. That was a thought of mine that if you can just rule a guy out, you're getting better odds. So just scrolling through, and I'm on DK Sportsbook right now. I'm just scrolling through. Like another way you can kind of do that is they have the matchups with, you can either bet a side or they offer sides with tie as an option. So the tie is almost like the third golfer that probably isn't going to hit. If you have a guy, I mean, obviously it could, but if you have a guy that you substantially like over another and you really see an edge, now you're going from, minus 110 to like plus 120 in that because the tie is an option. I don't know how you feel about that one because ties do probably happen more than bad golfers winning the groups of three. But this has to be one that you really see an edge on one side, I guess, and I'm confident that they win outright.
So what I'd say with that, because ties obviously in 18 holes can happen, but there are golfers, the way I'd look to that is high variance guys. There are some guys where I'm just like, this guy, he's either going to be wildly ahead or wildly behind the group, the head-to-head. He's either going to get it going or not. I don't know how many times he's in a real dogfight and he could tie. So if that's the case, you might as well open yourself up to losing with a tie because you're really going for that almost ceiling type output, even in a head-to-head. You're saying this guy's going to shoot 66. If he doesn't, he might really struggle out there. I'm not worried about getting by with a tie. I'm probably going to lose that head-to-head anyway. So just know what you're betting in the sense of the players and try to adapt it. I don't think blanket betting with a tie or without a tie is the way to do it. It's all situational.
That makes sense to me. I have no idea who these high variance guys are, but the argument makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where you can dig. Like honestly, to me, Spieth is someone like that. Okay. He's his putter collapses, he hits it out of bounds. Then yesterday he went eagle and then he rattled off 4 straight birdies. Like he has that type of ceiling still. He's in a 3-ball today with Snedeker and Louis, who are also kind of high variance, so it's tougher. But I will say this: I think that Spieth is live to miss this cut. I also think he's live to blow the group away. And I know that's not great information, but it just shows you the range of outcomes on a guy like that. Not everyone is like that in every group.
Right.
So, but we also have something next week that's going to be pretty exciting. You and me are officially kicking off the NFL season. We're going to be going division by division, obviously both conferences, given our favorite team totals, win totals, if there's player props you like. Little NFL look ahead here. I know we talked last week. I asked you about Cam, so we don't need to get into too much. I have a random question for you, and that's, have you been watching Hard Knocks? And B, then just feel free to talk about what we're doing next week.
So I watched the first Hard Knocks. I haven't watched the second. I got a new cable provider during quarantine, and when I switched, I realized that I had been scrolling through like HBO and Showtime movies during all this non-sports time and that they were all terrible and I didn't use those channels at all. So I got rid of them. And then I was like, oh, Hard Knocks is on. I don't have them anymore. So I was able to watch the first one. I haven't watched the second one. I'm going to pick it up and start watching them soon. But it's obviously a different year. I kind of liked the two teams though, just from watching the first episode.
I like them. It's probably just me. Chad, feel free, unless maybe this is just me. I've been confused because they're both blue, and I'm just like, man, they got Derwin James and Jalen Ramsey. This team is stacked. And I'm just like, nope, that's just 2 totally different teams. I can't keep the personnel straight for some reason.
I will say it would be cooler to do 2 teams that are like different cities, different colors. And it does not help that the Rams, for some reason, changed a great classic logo into like a crappy looking Chargers logo. One of the weirdest logo changes I've ever seen. So that doesn't help. The same city, same colors. I get what you're saying there.
First of all, Chargers, I think they're starting to embrace the powdered blue, which is obviously the answer. Everybody knows that. But those are two teams that I think are actually really polarizing. More so the Rams. The West is brutal. Of course, they're confident they're going to get back. I'm interested to see what you have to say about them when we dive into that. What could be the hardest division now that the Cardinals are becoming good. We know the Niners are good. Seattle is immortal. They're never not good. So we've got that. And then
it's the best division in football.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? You remember when it used to be like, you remember those years when the Seahawks would get in at like 7 and 9? And now look at it. It's amazing how fast it changes. And then obviously the Chargers, how long will Tyrod go? I would expect him to start the year. When do we see Herbert? Is it immediately? Is it week 4? Is it week 10? I guess it could be not this year. I'd be pretty stunned about that though.
How do you personally feel about Herbert?
Oh yeah. Huge. I'm a big Oregon guy. I'm a big Justin Herbert guy. I think he's going to be fantastic. I'll say this. I think he's a big boom bust guy. He's very raw. He's going to need some work. Tua, it looks like, barring the injuries, he can come in and contribute. But I love the pick for them. I think this guy's got the skill set. I know the Pac-12, you can rip on it for various reasons. I'm a big fan of him. I assume like you, are you skeptical like everybody else?
So you're spot on that he's a boom or bust guy. If he's good, he's going to be really good. I'm going bust.
And that's fair. Yeah.
I just betting a little bit of college football. I'll admit there's some personal, he's gotten me a couple times when I've been on the other side out of nowhere like that. Was it the big game against Utah? He had like 3 rushing touchdowns. And
in the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, the Pac-12 championship. Which, I mean, Utah did really well last year. Good for them. They made me some money. But that game, But I don't have any like really hot take on him. It's just like eye test with me. I just don't think he has it.
And listen, I don't know. It's one of those things. You can take a measured approach to any guy, but I feel like you have to really take a pretty polarizing one with him specifically. If you think he's going to be good, I could see him being the best in the class. If you think he's going to be bad, and it's pretty easy to see that, I feel like you think he's probably going to be pretty damn bad behind Burrow, certainly behind Tua. But I like it. I like the pick. I'm glad that, it would have been tough. Like if I was Cincinnati, I would have had real problems because I don't think you reach for him. It's a tough justification, but for the Chargers, not that he fell, but it's easier to grab him there than if you had the first pick or something like that.
Well, it's a team. I mean, the Chargers did they go 12-4 the year before? I think
they were when
they were a really good team
by like 800 that year.
Are
you talking about when they went to Foxborough and lost by like 700?
Oh yes. The season the season that everybody had them winning that game in Foxborough as dogs, and we got to take the Patriots like -3.5. That was
not great. Certainly not we.
Some of us.
Yes, some of us. That's right.
The Patriots. Like I said, I either bet on the Patriots or I pass. I never bet against the Patriots, and it is not because I'm a fan. It's just because this year might be different. This is the year to bet against them, but in the past, don't bet against them.
Fair enough.
But yeah, this is a team that went 12-4 and then had a down year and has all that same talent for the most part. So if Herbert is good and you plug him into that, like he doesn't have excuses. He's got Keenan Allen. He's got Mike Williams. Like there's weapons there, legitimate NFL weapons. So we're going to be able to find out if he's a legit NFL quarterback or not pretty quickly.
That's a really good point. And that's something we're going to dive into in full because I railed for a while on the Daily Show against some of these quarterbacks. I don't know what you want. Like if you have just nobody around you, how are you supposed to show you're good exactly? Like I don't get that. Now, Justin Herbert, I'm a huge fan. There's no excuse. Not that he needs to immediately be great, but he has everything you can ask for, including a defense. So that's not like I use Josh Rosen. I don't know what people thought he was supposed to do with some of these teams. I'm not saying he's the greatest quarterback ever, but what a brutal situation to get into. So on that note, we're going to bounce on Eddie here on a Friday. Chat, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for getting up early. Hit the like button. Helps build the show. I know it's the grassroots movement of the show. We got some big things planned for football. We're going to start putting in some fun giveaways and things like that, more interactive, get into it. So hit your like button on the way out. Me and Josh Engelman coming up next, breaking down the NBA 4-game DFS slate. I'm going to drink some water, refresh myself, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. Good luck out there today. Pick some winners, and we'll see you next week.